Welcome all back in to week 7, the AFC South. Got the Jags flying today. It is once again I, your guy TJ, along with a man whose mouth has more holes in it than the Titans' offensive line, Watkins. Say hello, Watkins.
I don't understand the joke. Oh no, now I do. Okay, funny.
With us today is a special guest, Cash, who is the Texans owner.
Hello,
Uh,
all. Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Excited to be on. Share my input of my awful team to all of you, and hoping you would join me in a tank session.
I am excited to hear from you because you are tanking. So there's kind of not as much bias as I would think from somebody who is trying to compete. So I think it'll be
Yeah,
pretty fair and honest. Um,
yeah, for sure.
so I'm excited for that. We're actually going to keep you for third to last. I get to go last because I make the rules. So, like I said, and do we have anything to say today? I think we're still looking for basketball players for our basketball league, or
Probably.
We are, yeah.
there's a couple
We're
more
for
left there.
about 7 or 8 teams.
This is more for Watkins. Watkins, don't forget to put up something for the league to vote on who's going to win and lose each game. So
Yes,
they
the
start.
pick'em contest. I'll probably a week before week 1, probably the Wednesday prior to week 1. I'll put up the first week's matchups for everybody to vote on. I think I said last week that I'm postponing the salary IDP league and the dynasty IDP league
Everything's fine.
to next season, but still taking startup waitlist owners for that. So DM me. Also, Madden 24 simulation WFF thing is postponed until EA fixes their shit.
So never.
I don't. The fucking PC
Yeah.
port is so fucking trash, man. It's an unoptimized nightmare right now.
Week 16. All right, got
Yeah,
it.
I don't. That'll happen maybe if EA fixes their shit.
Thank you to everybody who voted on the poll. I think there was like 20 of you.
Yeah,
20 exactly, not counting Mia Watkins. That's exactly 2/3 of the league in like 2 days.
I voted, so that does count me.
You always ruin things. Why are you voting? This is for our knowledge, so we know what to do in the future. But it does
I
let us
gave
know.
my honest opinion.
Okay, it does let us know what you guys are looking for, what you guys want to hear, what you want to see. Um, we got some time on our hands, so we want to make sure that 30 other owners are having a good time. In between the 6 days between Sunday. So with that, unless any of you two have anything to say or mention, we'll go ahead and start in on our first team. Nope,
Drum
nope,
roll,
nothing.
please. Who's our first team?
Indianapolis AC's team, the Colts. So
You're
we're
trying
gonna
to
pull
torture
them.
yourself early, aren't you?
I'm trying to get it out of my head. So the Colts. When we first started, I felt like they were not going to be that great of a team. They have pulled off some great trades. Their defense was better than I actually kind of gave them credit for, and now I think they're going to be one of the powerhouses in this division. Um, which sucks for me, but that's okay. I really thought it was going to be like everybody just kind of crashing and it's just
Nope.
all sunshine
Yeah.
and rainbows for me.
Hey
But
man, feel the pain. I have to deal with the Vikings in my division. You have to deal with the Colts in yours.
hmm he put in an answer to his question, right?
I never got a DM from him.
Never got a DM from him. All right, let me find the question. Titans, Colts. Was the same question as me. So basically, the question out there for them was: is there any area of your team you feel like needs to be improved upon? And then talk about any trades you've made so far that you feel like has elevated your team the most. I mean, we're pretty much going to go over that anyway. But I mean, obviously, Chase probably this
Yeah.
most. Yeah, that that sucks to see that I'm going to have to deal with him probably on a yearly basis for the next
It was
7.
such a Such a good trade for Chase too. Like,
Yeah, it was a very, very good trade for him.
yeah, for anybody who's not gonna know off the top of their head, so you don't have to look. He traded Shaquille Leonard, Michael Pittman,
Yeah, I got
the
it pulled up.
Jets' first round pick. Oh yeah, it's right here on the screen, and his own third round pick for Jamar Chase, and the Bengals' third round pick of the 2023 season. And so I'd have to look to see who that turned into, the Jets' first round pick, but I can't imagine it was somebody as close to as impactful as Chase is gonna be for his whole career, most likely.
Yeah. I would say hindsight being 2020, that was probably not a good trade for on Nevitt's side. Um, but I mean, we were still trying to figure out. I mean, this was back in April.
Yeah, late
Everybody,
April, so it was early.
Yeah, a long
and
time ago.
yeah, and Nevitz actually wasn't one of the originals, right? He took someone's spot.
It was McMuffin's team originally until he couldn't pay. So
Hmm.
Nevitz got the raw team. There were no changes to the team whatsoever when Nevitz took over. So
Right, but he didn't take over until around Aprilish, if I
yeah, it
remember
would
right.
have
Yeah.
been sometime in April.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
so
was one of his first trades. So
let's see here. So yeah, that's a really good uh, swing for him on it because I think offensively was where I was expecting just to be dominating him in. I still feel like I've got the better offense, but I
You
mean, if
you
you
do, but it's not like crazy better. I don't know. Back to that question, like where he would think that he would need to improve on. I'm sure that objectively any of us can answer that. It's that his tight end is a question mark on what Irv Smith
agreed.
is going to do with the Bengals this year. And then I don't dislike Van Jefferson or Alec Pierce. It's just that's not the players you want to be starting at flex if you're trying to go all the way.
yeah, I'm not huge on his running backs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jamal
very much
Williams
so.
is a big question mark also. I mean, yeah, it was like the number 13 PPR back. Oh, Sleeper updated to show half PPR rankings too. That's sick as fuck. I just saw that for the first time. Anyway,
I,
Jamal Williams, 13th overall PPR back. I highly doubt he, repeats that now playing behind Alvin Kamara.
yeah, needing two flexes, I would almost probably see him using Pearson Hutchinson. Honestly, I would probably go with
Agreed.
the unknown.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still time to change that, and he might just wait to see what the guys do in week one
Yep.
and reevaluate. But yeah, obviously his offense is Jamar Chase and Mike Williams, and then C.J. Stroud, and then some fillers.
And Stroud is going to be the biggest question. Like,
I personally think Stroud's going to be great. So
okay,
I
I
also
mean,
agree with that statement. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
I
sure
don't
you
know.
do.
I mean, yeah, I mean, out of the three rookies, I would say he's definitely not the worst. I feel like the worst went to Carolina.
Bryce
Um,
Young. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't even want to rank them. I have no idea what ranking I'd put them in, but I think C.J. Stroud's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I would probably pick Stroud over Richardson. I don't know. I like them both, but yeah, I was not a big. I was big on Bryce Young, and then I started looking into it. Just kind of scares me. The fact that he looks so small behind that line.
Yeah. I don't know, man. His defense is nasty, though.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree. That defense is the main thing for me as well.
I'm a big fan of Quiddy Pay, so keeping him was a smart idea. Obviously, defensive line aren't big point scorers, but I mean, if he can up the sack total from 6 to like 9 to 10, that's going to be a nasty defensive line for fantasy.
I mean, he's projected 8.
DeForest Buckner, of course, is fucking disgusting. And then
Yeah,
just the triple threat of Joey Bosa, Zaire Franklin, and Bobby Okereke is just nasty.
Its linebacker core is crazy good, and his DBs are older on the older side, but are also very productive as well.
Yeah, I mean Jordan Poyer and Kevin Byard are two of the best safeties in the league, bar none. So
Agreed.
yep. That's where most of his points are going to come from.
yeah, looking at the bench though, I mean it's like a lot of benches in this league for competing teams. It's a pretty big
Slim.
drop off.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Kenny Moore though, cornerback for the Colts.
I don't think it's as big of a drop off on the defensive side. I think that he could still be nice and competitive.
That's true, and he's got Grover Stewart still too.
I also want to note he has no 2024 picks at all as well.
Yes, no 2024 picks and no first round pick in 2025.
Yeah, which I definitely think will hurt the future, considering I think his offense is lacking a bit in the running back position as well as the flex.
Yeah, I mean that puts him in win now for the next probably 3 years
Yep.
because whoever he drafts.
Nothing really fancy hiding on the taxi. Just a bunch of depth guys.
But you got a young quarterback, and sometimes that's kind of all you need to
All it
start.
takes.
He's
Yeah,
got
for sure.
some decent things on his bench that he could trade. Getting a running back of any kind from any competing team is going to be hard, and there's not many left on non-competing teams to grab. There are a couple out there still, but what he'd have to give up to get one might be a little too rich.
Well, what do you have for him for record?
I want to know what you have him for record.
I have him at 9-4.
Okay, so you didn't.
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
I gave myself probably the homer
Yeah.
bump, but no, I gave a 9-4. And
I have him going. I have him going 10-3.
Okay. You have him beating me twice.
I do. I have both of them. I have both of them listed as 50-50 games though, and those are his only 50-50 games that I have marked. I think he clears the other 11 games, either wins or loses. I think it's a clear choice for me at least. Yeah. But the 2 games with you, I think, are both 50-50 games, so he could just as easily go 8-5 to 10-3.
I got him losing to Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Carolina.
The funny part is if my predictions are true, then game 13 is going to be the game. Week 13 with you will decide who wins the division.
It's very possible. I mean,
that's going to be a good game of the week, most likely, if it goes that way.
We'll see. I mean, there may be a couple. What am I talking about? Couple of divisions. There we go, like that. But yeah, so I mean, I think Atlanta takes care of. My uncle's going to do work for me, and
yes,
in Carolina.
Yep, those are the 3 losses I have. Those are his 3 losses I have: is Falcons, Steelers, and Panthers.
I have myself beating him the last week because the last week is going to be the week that matters. So
yeah, I think it's all going to come down to week 13 for you guys in this division.
What do you think, Cash?
I'm thinking about the same thing, but I'm thinking it could swing a little bit bigger because I can think he can easily overtake you for this division if in a perfect world, if CJ Stroud goes out there, plays like Justin Herbert his rookie year. But, you can't bet on that. I think this offense is just so shaky. I think Jamal Williams could be almost not a non-factor, but something around that. Mike Williams, I'm not a big believer in. Irv Smith, I think could be decent. Van Jefferson, whatever. So I'm thinking he can be either very mediocre, like a 7-6 record, like even worse than what yours are all saying. But I also think he could easily sweep this division and go have a good 10-3 record too. I think he's just a complete wild card for me.
Yeah, that's really the problem with it is their schedule and your schedule too. I mean, you're in this division is pretty easy for a competing team.
Yeah.
I mean, you and the Titans in this division, which obviously we'll get to you guys, but those are pretty much free wins if you're built to compete. And then the NFC South, that's free wins against the Ravens, a free win against the Bengals. And then it's just the Steelers and Browns, but I do have him losing to the Steelers in week 7, but that's just because his buys fall pretty poorly there, and the Steelers are also somewhat built to compete enough to at least overtake them there. But
I still think he could lose against one of these rebuilding teams too, just because if
it's
he's got
possible. If he had a couple key injuries, his season's pretty much just over. But I mean,
I agree.
For a lot of teams.
That's pretty much right. I mean, how many of his defensive players are actually Colts players?
Most of them. Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, Zaire Franklin. That's it. Only 3.
And his depth isn't insane either by any stretch.
So here's, I wouldn't say a concern because it would be good for me, but here's what I'm thinking. Indianapolis sucked last year. I mean,
Yeah, they weren't great.
their defense was
Yeah,
out there a lot. I
agreed.
don't think those players are going to be scoring quite as much this year as they did last year, due to the fact that their offense is probably going to be a little bit better. Even without Taylor, I think this team is going to do a lot better because they're going to have a quarterback who can throw the ball and isn't ancient. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
but
Yeah, that's probably true. But I mean, DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye are going to get their sacks really regardless, I think. So then it just comes down to, can Zaire Franklin repeat 166 tackles and 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think he clears 100 tackles still this season. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference fantasy wise.
we'll see. I hope so. We'll see though.
But
All right.
yes, 10-3, and then you got them going 9-4. So we're in that same ballpark.
Usually,
Yeah.
Tennessee. That's who's going to go next.
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee did leave us something. Question 2.
Oh, he did. I have that answer if you want me to read it off.
You can read it, and I'll read the question.
Please.
So all these are thanks to Boltified, by the way. Titans, you've acquired a young core of wide receivers with Burks, London, and Reed. What's your take on the QB position for your roster? Do you foresee yourself making a move to acquire a QB in the future? Why or why not?
He said, I don't really have any intention of getting a quarterback anytime soon. It would be too expensive. All of the pieces that I have now I like, but I don't have anywhere close to the depth needed to compete. I expect to do some selling during the season to improve my draft capital to either get some young guys or flip for veterans going into the season. That being said, I'm also partially motivated to try to win without ever getting a quarterback because I completely stand by my position from the end of 2022 that it should be a quarterback spot instead of a superflex spot, and I want to prove that you don't need a quarterback to win.
I like that answer.
I hope. I mean, I hope that's the whole point of it being a super flex. Is I don't want it to be people. Everybody have to be reliant on quarterback. I just feel like, and even in our other 32 team league, it's like this as well. It's super flex.
Yes.
So for me, it's
Mm.
100% in all my leagues super flex.
Yep.
It's
Same.
just it's a feels bad moment when you cannot get a starting quarterback and you have that spot just empty for 6 or 13, 14 games.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you could say that that's why we didn't put a kicker out there either.
Yep.
So I want to make it as competitive as possible. Like I said, my only real wish that we did was maybe probably put a little bit more defensive spots out there because there are so many 100-point scorers on the defensive side
Yep.
compared to the offensive side. So,
Mm.
but it does keep. I mean, if you look at, I mean, I can pull it up right now. You look at players and you look at all players who are free agents, and you look up their points.
You got to click for agents. There you go.
Highest one projector right now is not 92 points. Granted, that doesn't mean a lot because a lot of defensive players don't have projections because they don't know where they're going to go. But we're down to our last cuts already, and there's not one person out there with 100 points projected. I'm happy with that because that means out of all these people here, one may show up out of nowhere and be the difference. And you just kind of be on your toes and keep an eye out on the waiver wire. So I'm happy with that. But yes, no quarterback is no bueno for him. Let's see
I
here.
mean,
So
he's not trying to compete this year though.
he may not be, but I think he will have some.
Yeah. Once we
Yeah,
get to the projections, I've got him in a decent spot. Like he's
some. So
mid rebuild. He's not going full tank, but he's not doing like a 1 year turnaround. I think he's committed to a 2 year turnaround, maybe even 3. I don't know, but he's not going full tank. I mean, I think that he'll be a little better next year and a little better the year after that, as long as he, keeps with what he's doing. Getting Drake London from the Falcons was a great start. Traded a first and a second for Drake London, and then of course he's the Titan, so he started with Treylon Burks. And I don't know how to pronounce his name, the tight end. I just call him Chiggy.
Big.
Yeah, Chigga's Chigozium Okonkwo, who I really like. I think is going to be really good. Jaden Reed, you know, you can't throw a dart without hitting a rookie in the Green Bay wide receiver room. So, it, any given Sunday it could be any of them, but he's just as good of a lottery tick as all the other Packers wide receivers this year and
I
going
almost
forward.
feel like in Dwayne McBride is probably his super flex option at this point.
Probably.
Yeah.
That or Austin Hooper.
And then yeah, like you said, like he's got Robert Woods, who of course is not flashy, but any competing team would probably give up a third or a fourth
Yeah.
for Robert Woods. I mean, I would. I'd give up a fourth or a third for Robert Woods.
Yeah, these are your two flexes here, Woods and Reed. I would. Woods would fit just fine with me and flex for sure. He would do better than who I've got in there right now, or at least one of them.
He's got Devin Singletary too. Like again, not flashy, but any competing team would probably trade for Devin Singletary. I mean, obviously he's backing up Damian Pierce in Houston, but he's gonna get touches.
Yeah,
for sure, 100%.
And the league is so watered down that some of those backups are going to have to just be put on those flex spots, and you're just going to have to hope that they cash in that day. But I think he is also just like the Colts, like very reliant on his defense. A lot of good defensive players.
Yeah, they're all older for the most part, which is again some of the players that he could easily flip. I mean, David Long is a serviceable linebacker. Harold Landry is one of the better outside linebackers in the league. Anybody would trade for him. Jeffrey, I mean, they're all good. His defense, he could flip pretty much all of these guys. I mean, obviously he's going to hold Jack Campbell. That was his first round pick this past year.
He's also done a lot of moving around. So, I mean, there's hardly any Titans defensive players. So he's put himself in a good position.
Yeah, pretty much the only Titans he's kept were the young offensive guys, and then a couple of the higher value defensive guys like Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah.
I mean, he traded Kevin Bard, but like he still has Amani Hooker, who's a cornerback. Who cares? Oh, actually, Amani Hooker's the strong safety for Tennessee. Man, he does not score fantasy points. I think that he could easily flip most of his defense for picks or young guys mid-season because competing teams are going to have injuries. They're going to realize, oh shit, like the whole defensive line is what's stopping me from beating like that next tier of teams. And they go and the Titans have fucking Harold Landry. Like, yeah, give me that guy. That could be the difference.
Yeah, and I think his rookie class is fairly good as well.
Yeah, I mean Jack Campbell. He's got a couple other. He's got Ivan Pace too, who's making waves in Vikings training camp. He actually traded with cash for Ivan Pace.
Yep, he traded with me. Yep.
Gibbons in a third for Pace in a third.
What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Titans cash?
I actually think this team is pretty sneaky decent. I really like what they have going. I totally agree with you, though. I think they should really get some draft capital because right now they have their own first-round pick, no seconds, and then a couple thirds and fourths, which are mostly not theirs. And then everything past that, 2025, 2026, it's mostly their own stuff with a few minor picks thrown in. But they have a lot of, potential here. I think Drake London is amazing. I like Burks a lot. Chig, I think, is great. Robert Woods, I think he should be flipping because I think Robert Woods will have a pretty decent role this year, the Texans, considering how awful our wide receiver core is. And I think Singletary is a great RB to have around because I think he's going to see some third down work if Damian Pierce ever gets hurt, which I think is a real possibility considering how he plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Singletary's value. Yeah, his value will balloon. And then I love Reed. I've heard great things about him. I'm a big believer in Love. So, and he's set to be their slot guy basically to me. So I think that was a great pickup as well. So I like this team's offense, and I like their defense as well. Like they're missing a few pieces here and there, but I think the potential is 100% there. So I think they'll have a pretty decent season, but be middle of the pack. Like I think they could go 7-6, but I'm saying right in the middle of the pack, so 7-6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back to their draft stock, which you talked about, all of the picks that they have traded for, like all of their picks that are owned, by another team, are going to be late round picks. He has the Vikings third next year, the Steelers fourth next year, and then 2025 it's the Chiefs second, and the Falcons fourth, and then in 2026 it's the Bills third and fourth. So it's all like late round picks, which is fine still, but if you're trying to rebuild, obviously the earlier picks the better.
I can't wait for when this division actually like separates itself from the NFL. Uh, like right now, most of the teams that are going to be good are going to be the teams that are good in real life because you just kind of got a little
Yeah.
bit of a
Yeah.
head start. But like I think in like 3 years, it might be something crazy to where like you'll see the Rams in real life sucking ass, but the Rams owner, has done amazing. And it's just going to be weird saying how great the Rams are, but they're not really great in real life. I can't wait. But
Yeah,
Cash, I have a personal question. With you being a Texans super fan here,
of
who do
course.
you who do you think who do you think will end up having the best year out of all the wide receivers and tight ends for the Texans at the end of the year?
I think you could shake a magic 8 ball and get a better answer than what I would give you. But I think personally, I would say Nico Collins is probably who would have pencil having the best season. He's just got the perfect frame to be a wide receiver one, 6'4", runs like a 4.3. He's just athletic. He's been just overshadowed by awful QB play in Davis Mills. But I see Tank could have a really Tank is the biggest variable for me because I could see him honestly winning offensive rookie of the year, but I could also see him being a massive bust because of how small he is. So
Yeah.
I think it's just so many variables when it comes to wide receiver core, and I think you got to wait a few weeks to see how it shakes out and the final depth chart to even have a realistic idea of what's going to happen.
I was curious as if you were to be on the thought process of maybe Dalton Schultz, seeing as Stroud is a rookie and they may ease him in, but
I think Schultz will have a good season, but I think people overrate him a little bit. But I think he's a good safety valve. Like he always gets 500 yards and a few touchdowns, but I don't think he's anything better than that. He's not ever going to be like the best tight end in the league, but he's always going to be a good tight end 2, tight end 3.
I think Schultz is. I mean, you can see he was the number 11 tight end in PPR last year, and I think obviously the 2021 season he was number 3. That's an outlier. I think looking at 2020 and
Yes,
2022 being 12 and 11, that's kind of who Schultz is.
agreed.
top 10 tight end.
Hmm.
That's yeah,
Five, five,
slightly
maybe
outside
five.
the top end, maybe slightly inside the top end at 10 or 9. But I mean, in the tight end in fantasy, that's kind of the cutoff where it's like you have a good starting tight end and then bad starting tight ends. It's like if you don't have a top 10 tight end, then you might as well not have one at all.
I mean, to
Hmm.
be fair, Woods last year only 527 yards, so and they're projected one, I guess. But we'll see.
Looking at the Titans taxi squad, he's got a couple of good stashes there too. Lewis Sign of the Vikings, who's going to be their starting safety probably next year. Monty Rice, a young linebacker for the Titans, who's really promising. Taylor Heineke, who you never know could end up being the fucking starter of the Falcons after week 3 if Ritter falls off a cliff.
I hope not.
He could easily like flip him.
I think he needs to get rid of Mac too, though. I think Mac is a
Yeah, I don't know why he's holding Mac on his taxi squad, and he traded
yeah.
a 2/3 and a fourth for him like a
Yeah,
month
that
and a
was
half ago. I'm not sure why. Maybe
yeah,
maybe
that
he
was
thinks
questionable.
that he can flip him for more later to a contending team, but I don't know. Mac's kind of over the hill. I mean, as a Bears fan, I'll ride or die for Khalil Mack for the rest of my life, but I think his days of being elite are over.
All
Hmm.
right. So between Heineke and Minshew, who do you think gets more starts this
Who gets more starts?
year? Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I like Desmond Ritter personally, so I don't think that he's gonna fail, and like Heineke's gonna take over. I'd go with Minshew just because AR's got the higher probability of getting hurt.
Yep, I agree.
I love Minshew. Um, you know,
I'm
like I
sad
said,
that Minshew never got like a real shot to be a starter.
Yeah.
I only NFL jersey that I own is a Nick Foles jersey for the Jaguars. Dude never played a start. Never started a game for the Jaguars because he got hurt in the preseason and Minshew came in. And that's the only time I've seen the Jags live too, is when they went to Cincinnati that year. So
Right
I'm a big
on.
fan. Yeah.
All right. Well, what do you got the Titans going? What's your record for the Titans?
Oh, look who's pushing forward now.
Yeah,
6 and
well,
7. 6 and 7.
I also have them going 6-7. Pretty
Uh,
much beating the bad teams and losing the good teams.
Pretty much, I got them beating Tampa, Texas, Cincy, New Orleans, Texas. 2, 3, 4, 5, and where's the other W? Oh, Baltimore.
Yeah. Yep. That's the same. Beating all the bad teams, losing all the good teams, putting them at 6-7.
No, all right, that's out of the way. On to the next team then.
Now you got to choose between the two of you. We got to go to your teams
Yep.
now.
That's easy. It's the Texans. Okay, so of course, there were quite a few questions. I feel like. Let's see. Cash was demanding questions, and they
I
started
was.
to deliver here. Let's see. URL. When do you think you'll be able to compete? What is your overarching strategy?
So when I think I'll be able to compete mainly depends on how well I draft, because I could totally shit the draft, shit the bed there, and then be an perennial awful team, which is a real possibility. But I think if you have such a high draft capital like me, which I'm betting on having two top three, top five picks with big trees in my own, I'm thinking I'll have a pretty decent draft class this year. And then I'm thinking 2026 is when I'm realistically going to be a decent team. And my overarching strategy was obviously to be quite bad this year and into next year as well. And because the Texans didn't have much talent before, like I wish we started this year. It would have been nice to have C.J. Stroud and Dalton Schultz, but I started with Brevin Jordan and Davis Mills. So I know I had to either tear it down or get really lucky in some trades, which I knew luck wasn't on my side. So I just tore it all down, traded my number 2 pick, got a lot of assets this year, and then realized, well, I could just be very mediocre next year if I pick a bunch this year, because I don't think I'd ever be contending in flip this team 1 year around. So I decided to move all my draft capital and get more draft capital in later years and focus on the long haul and not the short race.
Okay.
Let's get through all the questions first, and then we'll come back.
Also, from URL, let's say most of your picks go south next year. What would be your strategy in 26? Would you still continue to rely on picks, or would you start trading some for more win now pieces?
My philosophy for building a team is being young, because I am not the type of person, unless I'm in a free league or just trying to have some fun. I always try to build to be a perennial playoff team, not a burst into flames in one season, win some money, and then burst into flames. So if I miss next year, I feel like I'm just going to keep bunkering down, trade those players for whatever value I can get for them, or hold the ones that I think will have some value and do better their sophomore or junior seasons quite a few years from now, and just reload, keep shooting, because eventually I'll have to hit, I hope, at least.
Okay. All right, and then these are from Boltified. I'll just say them both together. First off, pretty much know the answer. I think this is just going to be a flat yes or no. But do you have any collegiate players in mind that you're hoping to draft in next year or so with your future picks? And then what current players on your roster are you most hopeful for to create a larger impact for your team in the long run?
So I'll start for my picks next year. I'm betting on having the 101 this year, which, I'm hoping I'll be taking Caleb Williams. But I'm honestly not committed to taking him, because if Desmond Ritter, who leads into the other question on who I'm really depending on this season, which is Desmond Ritter. I spent some considerable assets acquiring him. I paid a first and a second late for Mac Jones, and then I traded for Desmond Ritter using I think a early second and Mac Jones for Desmond Ritter and a first and a third, something along the lines of that.
You actually just nailed it
Which
on the head. The exact trade.
there we go. But I'm hoping Ritter turns into what I think he will be, which is a pretty solid starter. And if I get that from Ritter, I probably will end up moving my own pick because I build a philosophy as valuing a quarterback the highest, obviously. And then my next most valuable position is actually tight end because I would be taking Brock Bowers if I had any opportunity to grab him because I think he's a generational talent. I think he's the best tight end to ever be in a draft class, and I think he will be a perennial All-Pro. So that's where
Let me write this name down.
Yeah, no shit.
I think he is probably the best tight end prospect. I think he's makes Kyle Pitts look like nothing, basically. So
Is it Brock?
I'm
Bowers.
Brock Bowers.
SEC's. I don't know anything about college, so I'm
Future Eagle.
future Eagle.
I think
He's a Georgia Bulldog. It's the rule.
he is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I really
6
like Desmond Ritter, so I think you're safe there. Hopefully, I've got shares of him in a bunch of leagues too, so
Mhm.
Didn't I trade him to you in
I,
a league?
I think so.
Yeah. It was between Ritter or Pickett.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Pickett. So
But yeah, I mean, obviously for Cash's team, the Texans, most of the value lies in the draft class, which I just kind of did the deep dive on. You're looking at 18 picks in 2024 currently, and then 10 in both 2025 and 2026. 2024, there's 4 first-round picks, 2 of them pretty much guaranteed to be top 5. 4 second-round picks, and then like 7 thirds and 2 fourths, 3 fourths. And then 3 first-round picks in 2025 and 3 first-round picks in 2026. So
it's a haul.
the amount of capital tied up in his draft stock is absurd.
I mean, you got to figure worst case scenario, 50% of his first round picks are going to be something.
Yeah.
Maybe not all star, but they're going to be scoring, and people are going to wish they had.
And I mean,
minimum.
even on the roster itself, not looking at the draft picks, there are still there's players that he's got. Obviously, you're here, so you can kind of come back with this. But I assume some of these guys you're going to hold. But I also know you could just as easily flip them if they pop off for more draft picks. But I look at Tutu Atwell. I think he looks promising. He's small, but Devontae Smith has already proved that you can be a top 10 wide receiver in this league at that size. Obviously, Tutu Atwell does not have Jalen Hurts throwing him the ball. So take it or leave that, but
yeah, I mean, he's got Stafford. He's on the Rams still, right?
Yeah, I think he's promising. Obviously, Desmond Ritter, I really like. There's some good defensive players that are older, which I assume, at least from the outside looking in, that you're gonna flip.
Yeah, that was the main goal. Like J.C. Jackson, I picked up because I like J.C. Jackson. I think last season was just a fluke.
Yeah, I agree. J.C. Jackson, John Johnson, Malik Collins, Marcus Davenport. These are all not super high-profile defensive players, but they're solid. You should be able to get a young dart throw or a late third or fourth for them, which is better than them being on your roster doing nothing.
Yep.
I'm sorry. CNN just posted the Trump's mugshot in his.
Yeah, I saw it. But yeah, so Tutu Atwell, Desmond Ritter, and then I see Henry To'oTo'o, the rookie linebacker for the Texans, who I really like. Andre Cisco, who you just got from TJ in one of the worst trades I've seen him make since Foyesade Ololukwon. irrationally angry at you for trading a 23-year-old starting safety for a third-round pick and a linebacker nobody gives a fuck about.
I just want to point out I tried to trade David Mayo for 5 fab and I wouldn't get that. So
But him in a late third round was enough to get you a 23-year-old starting strong safety or free safety.
yeah, I was pretty excited about it, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, Byron Young, I like him. That's about it that jumps out immediately. Oh, well, I mean, then you got Cameron Latou, who could be the heir apparent to George Kittle. Malik Cunningham, who looked real good in the preseason for the Patriots. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I traded for 9 fab for him, and
Yeah.
I was honestly hoping him to be a decent receiver, and look at him being a decent quarterback. So there you go.
Yeah. I will never know how to pronounce Islander names. Siaki Ika, rookie
It's
defensive
something like
line for
that.
the Browns. I like him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's players on this roster still that are there and waiting, plus the 18 picks next year. It's going to start to get scary.
Which rookie do you have right now are you most excited for?
From a Texans standpoint, it's definitely Toa Toa.
Yeah.
I legitimately have a Texans franchise in Madden, and I'm making Henry the best linebacker ever. So it's easily him. But I think there's a lot of underrated rookies I have as well, like Dylan Horton. He's a guy who didn't get much hype, but over as the draft season went on and on, he gained a lot of hype. He's a great locker room guy. I think he could easily be something. I do not know how to pronounce the D line for Indianapolis, but I've heard amazing things about him as well. But I think honestly, rookies are so hard to evaluate. I actually really like Andre Carter. I think he could easily be my best rookie by far. I honestly thought he was going to be picked in the second or third round, and he went undrafted. How I don't know, but I think he has the most talent out of all the rookies I have, to be completely honest. So it should be interesting to see for sure. But that's where I stand on my rookies.
What do you see your record being at the end of the year?
0-13. Very
I
straight
didn't
up.
even I didn't even look at your schedule. I didn't write anything down. It's 0-13.
I
That's
I
Yeah.
looked at your schedule, but I also have you going 0-13 because it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. When I do my projections, I go week to week and look at the projections and see who's on bye and see who that team would slot in, to take
Yeah.
over the bye and kind of do my best guesstimation. But for you, I was just like, oh no, Castro's. Not only do I think that he won't have to do anything and still lose, he wouldn't allow himself to win a game.
Yep, exactly. I
Like
was just
in
about
no
to point
world
that
is
out.
Castro going to accidentally win a game. So it's 0-13. Easy.
Yeah. If I have any probability of winning, I will trade everybody. So
And that's
that's
the
where I
only
stand.
reason. Before we started recording, I was talking to you about the other a league that I'm in that I'm doing this full tank in, and like my best probability to win is 2%, and it's just because I'm starting second and third string guys.
Oh
Obviously,
yeah.
you have some guys that are a little better than that starting, but you could just as easily swap them out for nobodies and get 0 points. But I
Yeah.
don't even think you'll have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
I would say there's probably going to be you and probably just one other team at 0-13. So and it's probably going to come out of the NFC North out of those two teams, Detroit and
Yeah.
Green Bay, whichever one happens to win it the most. So
Yeah.
all right, on to me.
On to the
I get to sit back.
Jaguars.
I get to sit back, answer some questions, and listen to you guys complain about how bad I am at trading, and then trying to. So, all right, what are the questions out there? Walk
I gotta pull the questions up. I forgot that I have to ask them. Hold on.
narrative, I guess.
I mean,
Young.
okay, TJ, it's just one question
Okay.
from Boltified, and is there any area of your team you feel like needs to be improved upon, and then talk about any trades you've made so far that you feel like has elevated your team the most.
So yeah, I mean, I always feel like there's somewhere I need to trade to upgrade. Um, right now, that would be probably either at tight end, linebacker, or just getting more depth in there. Um, which is why I think some of my trades that you may perceive as bad, I have done, such as acquiring Mayo. He right now is the projected third best linebacker on my team, and
I'm just
one
gonna
of
throw
those.
it out there. I would have traded you Willie Gay for Andre Cisco, probably straight up.
I got a draft pick out of it too.
Yeah, but still.
So I mean, Mayo and one of them is Highsmith, so Mayo is probably going to be a starting linebacker. Whereas Cisco, if you look at my defensive backs, his
Yes.
projections,
Yeah.
he would have been like my fourth best defensive. So that was kind of where that came in. It came into what I needed and what I had more than anything else. And I need help at linebacker, so I can put Highsmith at defensive end or on my defensive line until Wilson becomes what I hope he turns out to be. Um, I have a lot of high hopes for Keon White as well. Um, Hopefully, he'll be something for New England.
I like Keon
Um,
White.
but yeah, I've been watching this cat, Charlie Thomas. He's been doing okay in like preseason games, but I don't think he's going to get anywhere. Yeah, he's like their third outside linebacker, but we'll see. Maybe he'll get a special teams role or something. I don't know that Abdul is going to do anything this year. Maybe down the road because he's behind a lot of great Jaguars linebackers. So there's my answer to that. What other questions you got?
My question is, your starting offense is interesting. Obviously, you did the Josh Jacobs trade really early. It was all the way back in February where you traded Josh Allen, the Jaguar Josh Allen, Chuba Hubbard, and a third-round pick for Josh Jacobs, which in my opinion is such a good trade that it overshines your two horrible trades that I'll mention. I don't understand how Leon let Josh Jacobs go for so little.
Yeah.
But are you worried about him holding out or going
No,
to a team other than the Raiders?
actually, I'm pretty sure I heard that he was getting ready to report, so I'm not
Yeah.
worried about that.
Yeah.
And I had, I've always got concern at running back because I feel like running backs, they're the most consistent at scoring points until they get hurt, and they get hurt often. Wide receivers are always seems to be hit or miss. Not so much so in PPR, but I'm more traditional style whenever I play in fantasy. So my concern more is Jacobs getting hurt
Yeah.
because I think Garoppolo is going to run the ball a lot,
That's probably fair.
especially if Adams gets traded. So or does whatever. So I picked up Madison. I also drafted. I traded for Madison. And I also drafted Brown from
Yes,
Cincinnati.
Chase Brown.
Um,
I mean, my main
who I
question was the offense as a whole. I really like Josh Jacobs. I was just, I wanted
okay.
to at least, because I just bashed you for the Andre Cisco trade and threw another stray about before you say it earlier. But I got to give you your props at least for that Josh Jacobs trade. It was stellar. Calvin
Appreciate
Ridley, who, Calvin Ridley could be a top 5 wide receiver again, or he could flame out. So that's your wide receiver one. Like, you're a Jaguars fan. How do you feel about Calvin Ridley?
I think Ridley is going to outshine Kirk. I
Really?
do. I actually don't. Uh, I think Kirk actually ended up like top 10 last year in wide receivers. I don't think he's a top 10 wide receiver. I think Calvin Ridley is a top 10 wide receiver, though. I think Calvin Ridley will be the best wide receiver on this team. I have had multiple people ask all year
If he's
before
available.
is it is Kirk or Ridley available? I would rather trade Kirk than Ridley. Is uh, Ridley or who did I have before from the
Cooper Kupp.
Rams? Cooper Kupp available. I'd rather keep Ridley over Kupp,
Yeah,
mainly
speaking of.
because I think Ridley's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that I think Kupp might get hurt, but there's actually two people that I'm worried about that could get hurt. Stafford and Kupp. So
Yeah.
like one of them.
Speaking of Kupp, you traded him for Alexander Madison, Ty
Mhm.
Chandler, who will be Alexander Madison's backup, and then Rashee Rice and I don't even know who D Johnson is. Probably somebody I don't care about.
What's the question?
I mean, I personally liked the trade, and I told you that. We talked, privately about it. You and I are both big fans of Alexander Madison. I think that was a stellar trade. For me, it's where your offense is at besides Josh Jacobs, Calvin Ridley, and Alexander Madison. You're in that group that I'm also in, where it's like you've got your locked-in starters, and then every other position on offense is like you're starting Tyler Higbee. Like, cool. Obviously, number 6 tight end last year, but he's only ever been top 10 one other time, and that was all the way back in 2019. Marvin Jones, a 33-year-old wide receiver for the Lions, who's going to be, probably wide receiver 4 once Jameson Williams comes back. And then Rashee Rice, who, yeah, I'm sure looks fine and went to the Chiefs, which is a nice big splashy team to go to as a rookie wide receiver, which they need wide receivers, but that team does not support fantasy wide receivers very well. So it's just how do you feel about your these flex spots, and then Tyler Higbee?
So, first off, I want to go on that whole Kansas City since what Tyreek Hill was there, right?
Tyreek Hill they supported Tyreek Hill obviously, but now that Hill's gone, it's like for fantasy purposes, if you're not Travis Kelce, they just they don't really support a true fantasy wide receiver one. They haven't since Tyreek Hill left.
Sure. How long ago did Tyreek Hill leave?
I mean, it's only been this will be the second year I think. So or no, this
Exactly.
will be the
second year.
Talking about
second year.
a 1-year gap. So, I mean, it's not like we're talking about a 4 or 5 year thing where it's like, oh, they haven't had a wide receiver that's been able to do anything, since. It's been 1 year, so I'm not concerned about it. Somebody's got to be the number one wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that was only 1 year with Tyreek Hill. It's even that when Tyreek Hill was there, Tyreek Hill was the only fantasy relevant wide receiver.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got MVS as well, who will probably be okay.
Yeah, he'll be solid.
Sky Moore, a lot of people love Sky Moore. A lot of people love Kadarius Toney. They think Toney didn't get the accolades he needed when he was with the Giants.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think Rice will end up outperforming them all and be that wide receiver one. And Travis Kelce, he can't play forever. So
speaking of that, you have Noah Gray, who could end up being the heir apparent to Travis Kelce there.
I do.
That might help your tight end issue if Kelce retires soon.
When he retires, Mahomes is still probably going to dish it out to his tight ends as long as that's who the heir apparent is. I mean, I feel like that's a good spot to be in. So,
and I mean, moving on to the defense. I mean, your defense is, I wouldn't say elite, like mine's not either, but it's for a competing team, it's great. I mean, I love Alex Highsmith. I think the trade to get him was great. Tyler Lockett and Shaquille Griffin for Cordero Patterson and Alex Highsmith. That was a great trade. I love Highsmith. Cameron Jordan, while being 34, is still an elite defensive lineman. And if you can get 2 years of the same stats that he's given over the past 11 years, then that's stellar for a second round pick. Alex Singleton for the Broncos, very good. David Mayo, I talked about briefly you getting him in return for Andre Sisco, which I personally wouldn't have done, but Mayo could be good and serviceable. And then your DBs, I mean, Derwin James and Rayshon Jenkins are 2 of the best safeties in the league. Oh, and Xavier Woods. I think the defense is kind of silently scary. Like, it's not a bunch of big flashy names, but they're all very, very good players.
I have not been. I am more comfortable with it now, but pre-draft, I was not comfortable with my defense. It was priority to refix that because I put myself in such a deficit by trading away Josh Allen and Foyesade for offensive pieces. But getting James, I think I did just a first round pick for him, which
it's a first and a third.
First and a third, which that stings, but he is by far the fantasy wise the best defensive back right out there right now. So And having Jenkins, who is pretty young, also I think he's only like what fourth year, sixth year. Yeah, so
29.
29, 27, and Woods is 28. So that's what gave me the comfortability of trading Cisco out for. It's probably a flyer, but if Mayo gets me 170, I would be thrilled as a second linebacker. I just don't have enough faith in Taki to really do that kind of scoring. And Wilson may come out and do that because he may start actually week one. It's looking like he's on pace for it.
Yeah.
Uh, or he may not. He may switch out a lot because he is a rookie. So um, I also think Williams and St. Juice can hold me over during those bye weeks as well. They're serviceable
Yeah.
backups.
Look, we're looking at your bench players now. Yeah. I like Tyree Wilson. I think he's going to be great. St. Just is fine. You got a lot of serviceable depth guys for defense, highlighted by Tyree Wilson, who will probably end up being a every year starter in fantasy. And then Noah Gray obviously could be the heir apparent to Kelsey as long as they don't draft somebody else or trade for somebody. And then, I mean, even like you said earlier, you've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Again, not the flashiest player, but solid depth for a competing team. And then Cordero Patterson, who, while old and being replaced by Bijan Robinson on the Falcons, I think is still going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield this year, if I had to guess. And in PPR, that's going to be valuable. I honestly
He
think
might do something.
as long as they keep giving him touches every now and then and let him catch some passes, he could wind up being a better flex option than Marvin Jones.
But I'll say the person on my bench that I'm most excited to see that I think is going to be underrated and may actually make some waves will probably be a flex for me, hopefully, is Keelan Cole. He's been doing really good preseason. Who else has Las Vegas got
Oh,
besides
he's
Devontae Adams?
30 years old, though.
He's 30 years old. He's been with them for a while, though. He was with them last year. He scored 130 or 30 points. When he was with Jacksonville, he scored 150. Preseason, he's been doing really good. So I mean, we'll see. He's kind of their fourth right now, but I've never been a big fan of Jacoby Myers or Hunter Renfro. They've been okay at best.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah,
could
I
sneak
mean,
in there.
he could be a sneaky good flex. It'll all come down to Jimmy G.
I have no idea who this really is. I picked him up
He's
because I needed somebody.
no, isn't that who I traded you for
No,
Jamal
I think
Agnew?
I think so. No, I had him for waivers for nothing.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah,
wait,
you
why?
dropped him, and then I picked him up.
Well, yeah, it's because he was the Bears wide receiver 6.
Yeah, I think I did the same thing with Cole too. Yep, added, dropped, and then I picked him up. So
Yeah.
I was just waiver shopping.
And then, looking at the taxi, which you have mostly rookies there, where some teams have like depth, like a break-in case of glass depth guys. I really like Keon White. Yasir Abdullah could end up being pretty good. And then obviously Chase Brown, who probably takes over for Joe Mixon sooner rather than later. A lot of guys, coming down the pipeline. And then draft picks, no second next year, but you still got your first. You have my third, so hopefully a late third. And then your own and the Saints fourth, so an early fourth. No first in 2025, but still the rest of your picks, plus an extra fourth, courtesy of the Panthers. So you didn't really give up a lot of draft capital to get to where you're at to be a competing team, which is pretty good. I personally think you're in a good spot.
I've made it a point to try and be competitive, yet stay competitive, relevant throughout. Especially knowing that I got to deal with the Colts this year. I got to deal with the Titans probably next year,
and the Texans in the future.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future after that. So,
3 to 5 years.
well, hopefully I get my money's worth before that happens because it's going to be scary. But
yeah,
I don't know. The only one, yeah, Payne Durham.
He's got to compete with Cade Otton.
I think he's going to be their touchdown guy. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to get like 2 passes thrown at him, and he's going to get like 7 yards and a touchdown, which I'd be thrilled with. I mean, he's going to stay on the taxi, but I was very upset when uh, Hakeem Butler got hurt. I was really hoping he would come out and stay with Pittsburgh as a wide receiver, but still be registered as a tight end. That would
Yeah.
have been nice. But all
So
right,
all that to say,
10-3. That's all that to say. 10-3.
10-3, and I have
That's
you.
probably a
I
homer.
have you at 9-4. So we just have our projections for you and the Colts flipped. You think you're going to take it by a game. I think the Colts are going to take it by a game, and I think, like I said, it all comes down to Week 13.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of us make the playoffs.
I have your 50-50 games being both of them with the Colts, with the Falcons in Week 12, which I have you losing, and with the Buccaneers in Week 9, which I have you winning, but I think it could be a lot closer than you hope it's going to be. I think it's a bad bye week for you, and they have all their starters. Obviously, we don't know what Slomid is going to do. The new owner for the Buccaneers, he hasn't really done anything since he's joined, so if he trades everybody away, then it ends up being a landslide victory for you. Or if he makes some moves, maybe he wins that game, and you actually end up 8-3.
8-5.
Yeah, 8-5. But I think, similar to the Colts, I have you losing to the Panthers, losing to the Falcons. You actually beat the Steelers.
I myself
but
anywhere from 8-5 to 10-3. But yeah, I have myself losing to the Panthers. Indianapolis the first time we meet in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think you and the Colts are both. You're either 8-5, 9-4, or 10-3. I'm hoping, just for the sake of drama, it comes down to the Week 13 game.
I'm not. What about you, Cash? What are you feeling?
I'm actually leaning to the nice side of you, and I'm thinking you're going 10-3 as well. I like your team a lot. I think it's good. I think Josh Jacobs isn't going to hold out. Like, I think the future is a little more shaky than I think you're making it out to be, but that's just my 2 cents, and I value draft capital pretty high. I think your team's always going to be pretty decent this year, this year, like pick 20, 25, something like that. So I don't think you're going to be getting anybody amazing in the draft this year. And then, Marvin Jones is like 33, Higbee's 30, Ridley's 29, 28. So I feel like, and then your defense is old as well, which I think we've been over. So I like your team for the next few years, but I think it gets shaky in about 3 to 4 years for sure.
Yeah, gotta hope those draft picks that you do have fucking hit and keep hitting.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
right. Move on to MVP.
All right. So now it's time to go over Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to go ahead and let Cash go first. So who do you think, Cash?
I think it's pretty close between Jamar Chase and Trevor Lawrence, but I'm going to edge it out to Trevor Lawrence solely because he's a QB. I think Trevor Lawrence was a generational prospect when he was drafted, and he's proven it in the NFL. He's a great quarterback. Does everything so fluently. He's a great leader. I just think he's just going to blow up this season and be a top 3 quarterback, honestly. So that's my vote.
Yeah, I too have Trevor Lawrence, and I think it's mostly because he's got another weapon in Calvin Ridley to add to it. And I'm concerned about somebody, maybe not Chase, but maybe Burrow getting hurt and that dinging Chase's numbers. I don't know that Chase breaks 300 points this year, and I think that Lawrence probably will.
Yeah.
I also have Trevor Lawrence as the offensive MVP of this league this year.
Yay!
Coming into the league year one under Urban Meyer, he was the 23rd overall quarterback in the league and was hot garbage. And then his first year with Doug Peterson, all of a sudden he's the number 8 overall quarterback in the league in fantasy. And that's a huge fucking jump and goes to show you how big of a difference coaching is.
Yep, and he played very bad the first half of the year, might I add, as well.
Yeah. He obviously struggled a little more than some people probably would have expected coming into the league because, like you said, he was drafted and touted as a generational talent. Wasn't he the first overall pick in his class?
He was. Yes.
Yeah, and didn't exactly come out of the gate swinging. Obviously, Urban Meyer had something to do with that. But I mean, it happens to a lot of players. They struggle to make the transition from college to the NFL. And I think that was just something that he went through. He struggled, had to deal with a bad coach, and then last year had his second head coach in as many years being a rookie. That's got to be rough. Just thankfully that it's Doug Peterson, now and going forward for who knows how long. I really liked Doug Peterson as the coach, and obviously he won a Super Bowl with the Eagles not that long ago.
And he actually did break 300 points last year, so
Yeah.
so it's not actually even out of the realm of impossibility. I think he'll cut down on fumbles too.
Yeah, I really
That's a
like
big-
Trevor Lawrence, and I think like both of you said, he's going to be a generational talent and probably a top, at the least 10 quarterback for the next decade.
Yeah.
And likewise,
Defense.
Jamar Chase is the only other possibility, but I went with Trevor Lawrence because a quarterback's always going to edge out a wide receiver in my books.
Yeah.
At least a good one.
And we were talking earlier, and I just don't think Josh Jacobs. I don't think he has the year he had last year.
No, I don't think he does
Yep.
either. I think he's going to be great still, but I don't think he's eclipsing that many
327.
points.
I would be happy at 250.
Yeah,
If he
I
gets
think
to
that's reasonable.
Yeah. So, all right, on to defense.
Defense, I couldn't decide.
There's so many good options.
Yeah, but I think it's one of Zaire Franklin or Okereke, both Colts defensive players. I think I'd want to edge out to Okereke because he's got more of a track record than Franklin, and I think that I just think Okereke's the better player.
Partly the reason I picked Lawrence is because I could not let the off. I actually did not go with Franklin because I think, like I said, Indianapolis's defense is their players are going to take a bit of a hit. So I went with Okereke.
Yeah, he's very, very good.
And I went with the same answer for the popular reason of Okereke is very, very good.
Yes.
And I think he actually takes a slight hit because of Isaiah Simmons going there today, funny enough, but I still think he has an amazing season.
Yeah, I really like him. I think he's a monster. Bunch of chalk picks for this division. I don't really think there's much of a argument.
Those two linebackers are bar none better than.
Yeah.
Singleton gets up there, but not even really that close. And Derwin James would have to pick somebody off or get 10 picks or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get up there. So, all right, there it is. The South. That's how the South is won.
It's gonna be fun watching the race between the Colts and the Jags this year.
It will be.
Yeah. So I've decided not to do the AFC West. Just kidding, Kimchi. Next week is the West. We finally get to talk how great Kimchi's team is, even though he was gifted the best team ever. So,
I get to talk about how he started as my co-owner.
Yeah.
And then the Chiefs opened up and he was like, "Oh, all of a sudden now I have the money to buy in."
All of a sudden I know what I'm doing. So we'll finish off the AFC West. At that point, let's see here. I think there is a bye week in between the preseason and the regular season, so we'll get our first episode of me and Watkins and our predictions for real life football. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? And
yeah, I would. So obviously we'll do the AFC West next week as our finale to this little podcast series. And then starting the next week and weekly after that, it'll just be a shorter episode of us doing our projections, or not projections. I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Just our picks for the week for the pick'ems, and probably just taking a look at a handful of interesting matchups, on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, we'll claim who the match of the week is.
Yeah, we'll announce our match of the week, pick our winners for every week, and then maybe take a deep dive into one or two high-profile matchups. And then obviously, the following week, we'll look back at how well we picked, and just keep that train moving throughout the season.
All right. Well, Cash, do you have anything to say before we take off?
A slight thing. Just thank you for having me on, and I appreciate all the work you guys do for this league. You guys go above and beyond every week, and it impresses me every week on how much you guys do for this league, for it being a $20 buy-in.
I'm fucking trying, bro. You saw me yelling at somebody in a different league about how it's not that fucking hard to get into activity if you actually give a shit.
Yep.
Well, it is what it is, but we do appreciate those kind words. I have nothing to add other than I will see you guys in a week. What about you, Watkins?
What about me, Watkins? I don't think so. I think I said everything I needed to say at the top of the show. Looking forward to the AFC West next week. I'll make a post in the questions for YouTube channel either tonight or tomorrow, asking for questions from everybody, and we'll see who wants to join us next week. I'm pretty sure Kimchi is probably going to end up being the guest we have on. He's been chomping at the bit for 7 weeks now, so.
Yeah, division. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you all in a week. Peace.
Thank you.